How to read a book to a child for maximum learning is what we're going to talk about now. And the reason why this is so important is that a book in itself is so much more than just pictures and words. There's a story, there's pragmatics, there is math, there's science, there's so much to a story, and I want to help you pull that learning from the book and from the child who loves to be read to. Today what we're going to talk about specifically are the Jane Moncure books. And these books are sometimes very difficult to find, but they are a lot of times available at your library or at thrift stores. You will find them. You can also find them on eBay and Amazon as well. These books are also sometimes called my sound books, so be watching for that as well. Those are pretty much the same books. There are 3 or 4 different covers, so your cover may not look like mine, and that's okay, but these are used in the 3 and the 4-year ABC Jesus Loves Me curriculum. And if you don't have these books, that's okay. But what we are going to talk about can be used in any book that you read. So we're going to start with the letter book first, and then when we get done, we'll jump over to the number book. So thinking about the letter book, one of the things you want to do is always look at the cover of the book. Start talking about, what do you think this book is about? What are the characters in the illustrations doing? And so I would just ask my child, starting out, I would say, my book. And we want to use the phonetic sound of this letter because that's the focus of this book. We want the child to learn the phonetic sound. So I would say my book. And then when we talk about, these are D's, d. And then we could count the D's, and we could use the child's finger. 1D, 2D. 3D, and etc. And take that child's hand and do hand over hand learning. So you're gently holding their hand and you're pointing as you are going through the D's. So now we've talked about my D book. We've counted the D's on the side. We've talked about how D says D. Now we can talk about what the little girl is doing. The little girl, what do you think the little girl is doing? And let the child answer according to the picture. And as long as the child has something to do with the picture, there is no wrong answer. So we could talk about how the child is playing with dolls. We can talk about how the child is playing with a duck. We can talk about the different objects that are in this on the cover of this book. And as I said, your cover may look different, and that's completely fine. All the versions of these books are wonderful. So whatever version you can get, since they are so difficult to get, don't worry, the learning is still available. So talk about the cover. If you're talking about colors, you can talk about how the little girl has on a green shirt. Depending upon the child's level of development, you may just point out the shirt is green. Or you may ask the child to point to something as green. Or at the highest level, what color is the girl's shirt? So, depending upon what level the child is what questions you will ask. At the lowest level, you're just introducing. This is D. D says D. At practicing level, point to a letter D. At the highest level, what is this letter? What sound does this letter make? So we're talking about just the cover and all the learning that can take place. The next set of pages, and again, your version may be different, but on this version, they go through all the alphabet and they show the children that represent that letter in the books. And you'll notice that the letter that this book covers is in red. And so when I would read these books with my kids, we would turn to this page and they loved to see where that letter was in the alphabet. And they could find it with some practice that it was because it was red. And then we would say the alphabet until we got to that point. A, B, C, D. You could also sing the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and then stop when you come to that letter in the alphabet. You could also go through the phonetic sounds as are in the 2-year curriculum. So you'd go A, apple, B, ball, C, cat, D, duck. And you could go through the sounds as well. There are many possibilities, and my kids always really loved this page. There was something about could they find it and the excitement of could they sing to that point and stop. So don't just run through books, enjoy each of the parts. Again, we have a picture of the cover, and you can review or you can move on, but you also want to always teach the children about the authors, who wrote the book, because they will begin to learn those author names. And then when they get into school or when you go to visit the library, they're going to remember those names and they'll begin looking for other books that are by that author. Each one of the letter books begin with the sentence of little d had a box, or little a had a box, or little b had a box. And with time, the child is going to be able to say the word box when you read it. And what I would do with my kids in first reading these books, I would go, little d had a box, say box, and have them repeat the box. And then I would on the next page go, I will put them into my sound, and I would pause and see if the child would say the word box. I would put them into my sound, and I would wait a few seconds, and if the child was able to, I would let them say box. If not, I would say box themselves until we got to the next point that there's another box, and the more you do that, the more the child will start saying those words. And they will start recognizing that the letters represent the picture. And with time, that will get easier and easier. So what happens in each of these books is that the little girl or boy with the letter on their bodies, the D or B or whatever the letter is, they're going to get a box and they are going to put things in their sound box that start with the letter D. So right here, little D found some dolls. And then oftentimes it will ask if the child should put those in her box, such as little D did little D put the dolls into her box? She did. And you can ask the kids, D, dolls, does it sound the same? For those older kids, they will start understanding whether those items should be in the box or whether they shouldn't. Now, I do want to say that in these books, they do introduce blends, such as drum. But the drum still starts with a d sound. So don't worry about the blends. I don't even mention the blends. That is not something you need to be concerned with, but they do let you know at the beginning of the book that blends will be discussed in the book. When you get to the end of the book, then you are going to have a review of all the D sounds that little D put into her box. In introducing, I would say diamond, and I would take the child's finger and point and say diamond. For a child who doesn't have the sounds yet to say the word diamond, that's okay. Just say it, diamond. And then take their hand and go deer. Take their hand and move to dominoes. For a child who is beginning to talk, let's say a 3-year-old, have them repeat the words after you. So you say deer and have them say deer after you. Have them say dustpan, and have them repeat after you. That will explode their vocabulary. Also, when you speak with a lot of enunciation, with putting a lot of emphasis on the explosive consonants, dustpan, they will start doing that as well, and that will help them be easier understood. Another option of practice is to allow the child to point to the items that you ask. So you say, point to the donkey. The child would point to the donkey. Point to the dog. Point to the dog. Then the highest level of learning is where the child can identify that the learning has happened. And that's where you would point to the object and then the child say what the object is. So you would point here, the child would say domino. One thing you also may want to do when you're pointing to these things, you should say daisy, dove. And that will also emphasize those phonetic sounds. Let's move to the number books. And again, all of these things that we are talking about are things that you can do in any of the books that you read. The number books are my 3 book or my 1 book or my 9 book, whatever it is. I chose the 3 book today. And you will notice on the number books, the number is on the child's hat, while the word is on the child's shirt. For the younger children, let's say the 3-year-olds, I always point to the child's hats because I want them to get used to the shape of the 3 and that being the number that we are speaking about. So on the cover, we can talk about the number 3 in written word, written out, and we can talk about the representation of 3 on the cover. And so I would take the child's finger and hand over hand gently touch it and count the goats. 1, 2, 3. And you always want to have a steady beat when you're counting with a child. 1, 2, 3. A steady pulse. So on the cover we can talk about what's the animal? What is the animal's sound that he makes? What is the girl doing with the animals? And you can brainstorm and make up stories that you think will happen in the story. The inside cover is the same as with the letters. We have the numbers, and you will notice that the child is always by the number that this book is going to be talking about. And so the same way, I would count until you get to that number. 1, 2, 3. You can have the child count if they're ready all by themselves. And they may be ready to count, but they may not be ready to touch the numbers in that sequence. And so as they count, hold their hands and help them count as well, and have the 1-to-1 ratio. 1, 2, 3. Again, we come to the cover page where it talks about the author, and then we have a new picture on this one that has different animals. And so we can talk about what's the same. For those 4 and 5-year-olds, we can talk about same and different. And this is same because it's more animals. It's the same because there's 3. It's different as in that these are little animals and goats are big animals. Lots of opportunities to talk about things. In the number books, they always begin with, this is little 3, and again, for those younger kids, I point to the number 3 as I say 3. She lives in a house of 3, and no matter what the number is, it's always a house of that number. And in this case, it has 3 rooms, and it will tell you to count them. This book has direct things for you to do while you're reading the book, which is helpful. So we're going to count. Again, I'm going to take the child's finger and we're going to count with a steady beat. 1, 2, 3. 3 rooms. It has 3 windows and 3 hanging baskets. We're going to need to count that again. 1 window, 2 windows, 3 windows, and etc. We can talk about when the house gets bigger. Let's say it's the book of 10. We can talk about which room would you want to live in? Which is your favorite room? Which room has your favorite color in it? A lot of opportunity for questions as well. Now in this book, the threes, it focuses on the 3 little pigs, the 3 billy goats, the 3 bears, and etc. because the kids will already be understanding or should already know those stories. So every day, little 3 leaves the house to go for a walk. She jumps 3 jumps. Can you? So you can stand up and have the child jump. 1, 2, 3. If they're older, they can jump on their own. If they're younger, take their hand and help them successfully jump 3 times. One day, little 3 finds 3 little pigs, but the 3 little pigs are sad. And this is where we can combine the pragmatics. Make your sad face and help the child make that face just like the pigs are. Talk about how the pig is looking. What are his eyes doing? What is his mouth doing? As you go on through the story, you will continue to count different things. Remember to hold the child's finger and help them count in a rhythm. When we get to the end of the number books, you will review and talk about the different sets of 3 that you found. So in this case, 3 pigs. And what you could do for children who are ready is to say, how many pigs are there? And let the child count. 1, 2, 3. Or you could say, point to the 3 goats and have the child point to the 3 goats. Also on the back of the book, you will see how to create the number and the words. See what I can do, says little 3. She makes a 3 this way. And while this does not have tactile to it, like our tactile numbers and letters that we use in the 3-year curriculum, this is something you can still trace. So take the child's index finger and trace around the 3, around the 3. And you can even say our number rhyme. Around the tree, around the tree. That's the way to make a 3. And so then you're tying what you're doing with their tactile letters and their handwriting to the book, and they're seeing it in more places. For 4-year-olds, or maybe even your later 3-year-olds, what you can do is also trace the letters with their finger. And you can say the letter formation rhymes as you do it. So many possibilities in these books. And as I stated, this is not just for the Jane Moncure, my number, and my letter books. But I hope that you can see the learning potential in these books and why I continue to suggest them in the curriculum.